Welcome to the Sports Card Lessons Podcast. I'm your host, Big Ken. Whether you're watching on YouTube or listening on a streaming service, please like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. You'll be notified whenever I drop any new content. Welcome. Thanks for being here. NFL schedule being released tonight. I know we have Chiefs Ravens to open up the season, and then week 2, Chiefs Bengals. Here is when the hobby in me gets in the way of being a fan, right? Lifelong Chiefs fan. But considering my top 3 cards that I own are rookie autos of Joe Burrow and Lamar Jackson, right? So if I still own these cards come September, the hobby in me hopes those 2 quarterbacks play very well, raise the price of those cards. The Chiefs fan in me hopes Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs dominate, right? So, and then I say it's just the beginning of the season, right? We can lose a game, lose a couple games at the beginning. Let me sell my cards while the other players are their prices are going up because they're playing well. It only matters if we're winning at the end of the season, right? I mean, that's when you want to be winning. You don't want to start strong, you want to end strong. So we'll see what happens with that. Hopefully, I'm still waiting for the price to go up on the on the football. It really hasn't moved much recently, and in the last 2 years, this is the time mid-May where you start to see those prices going up, and the news of the mini camps and things like that, and certain players just getting into a frenzy, right? People just wanting to buy certain players because they've heard something or whatever. But we haven't really seen those prices move yet. I'm still waiting on those prices, and hopefully they'll start moving soon, right? I got some good news yesterday. 2 of my PSA orders have completed and shipped. They'd have been sitting in assembly, both of them, for weeks and weeks. So it was kind of cool that they both popped same day and shipped. So I have 52 cards arriving from PSA, freshly graded. They should be here Thursday or Friday. Decent amount of those are football. Some are women's soccer, which I included. It's interesting. You hear people talk, on some of the orders. Like, as I'm putting orders together, I'm like, oh, I got to come up with 20 cards, right? And I hear a lot of people say this. I end up throwing cards in at the end, which I did that, and I talked about it, but I didn't want to be that. It just seemed like all those cards I throw in the end come back like a 7 or an 8, and it was just such a waste of money. So as I'm going through, I have my women's soccer cards that I really, I know I needed to add them in because I want to bring those to the national. So I mixed them in with football on 2 orders. So when I got my order up to, 16, 17, 18, I pile in 10 or 12 of those soccer cards and send them off. So yeah, so I'm excited they're coming back. I already know, and we talked about this, some of those PSA 9 cards that I cracked, wiped them down, and resubmitted are coming back 10s. So I'm excited about that. I'm going to save the full reveal for probably next week. I'll do that when I have the cards in hand and I can talk a little bit more about them and why I think, they came back 10s versus coming back a 9 again. I have the Fenway show this weekend at Fenway Park. So I'm hopefully that some of those cards that came back, I really haven't gone through them or looked through them. I just know that they're coming back. I saw what the grades were on them. So I'm, some of those cards I can take with me, but some of those, those, again, talking about the prices on this, like Strouds and Richardsons, it's a little early to be selling these 10s of them. I think the prices are definitely going to, take a jump up. and that's what I'm hoping for. That's what I'm waiting for. I jumped into some breaks in the last week. I jumped into Optic Football Blaster breaks. This was crazy, right? The Optic, the blasters came out before the hobby boxes this year, and I tried to find out, like, was there a problem with the nothing. I mean, there's no information out there why, and I've never seen such a thing where that the the blasters are coming out before the hobby boxes. I don't know if that's going to hurt the market of the hobby, by the time they do come out, if people are just going to be like, "Ah, I'm done with that now." I don't know, but I mean, it's been pretty good. I've jumped into a bunch of breaks and I really hit some great cards. Now I'm thinking I don't have the cards in hand. They're being shipped. And I'm thinking to myself, I think I might want to grade some of these too, but it's just too late. And I mean, I haven't hit anything that I'm going to be like, okay, I'm going to, get that out in 5 days or something like that. I mean, certainly nothing like that. And I would have to think at the end of June when the hobby boxes do come out, that's what's going to happen. People are going to pull some great cards. They're going to try to rush them through PSA so they have them for the national, right? So I don't know. I mean, pushing it to the very end on that is almost like a little. It's an expensive game, right? I mean, if these boxes could have come out much earlier, could have been more reasonable. So even with these cards, and I'm thinking, at this point, I'll send them the grade because I'm doing some shows in August, and I'll have them for that because I know last year I shipped out orders at the end of May, and I didn't get those back till August. And I know it's going to be a mad dash, right? It's the same thing every year after year. And we get fooled when, kind of lulled into this where, oh yeah, I just sent an order back out. And I was just listening to some content today. Somebody said, oh, 30 days. My card's already coming back to me. Plenty of time before the national. Well, this is what happened last year, right? And myself and other people I know, we sent orders out at the end of the May, beginning of June. And of course, that's when, the onslaught of orders come in because everybody wants these cards for the national. Uh, and they tell you 50 or 60 days, for when that's coming back out. And that's just an average timeline. Could be different this year. I don't know. But if I go by, past performance these last couple of years, I know anything I send now, I wouldn't expect it to be back before the national. Uh, I did get, speaking of a 5-day turnaround, I had that CJ Stroud kaboom that I had. I sent that out to PSA, and I was had a feeling it was going to get a 9. It did get a 9. If you're on YouTube, I'll hold that up. Give you the sideways view. It did come back a 9, so I expected it. I'm not upset with that grade. Some of these cards, I felt, and a lot of people said this to me too. Maybe more people said this that convinced me to do it than I thought to myself. But there's an outside chance it could gem, right? So send it, see what happens, right? So it came back a 9. Um, Probably half the cards that come back 9 from PSA are borderline 10s. I'll say it, and I'm saying this because I hear it from everybody else too, says just depends on who your grader is that day. I had someone reach out to me a couple of weeks ago and said they sent the same card. It was a PC card. They sent the same card back 4 times to PSA. First 3 times it came back a 9. The 4th time it came back a 10. And all he did was crack the card, wipe it down, put it back in his sleeve, and sent it back. And when I send cards back for a second time, I wonder when I'm sending those cards back, do they look at my account and say, hey, this guy's graded these same cards already before, especially like a numbered card, something like that. But then I figure, you know what? What do they care? They're getting paid. They're getting paid for this. It's better for them if they think the card, could be a 10. Send it back. Send it a 9. If it's borderline, make it a 9. Somebody will look at it and say, wow, there's nothing wrong with that. Send it back. I mean, I'm sure it's good for their business, right? 70 days. 70 days until the national. Collectors are getting excited. All right. I mean, it's the one event every year. But dealers, right? Dealers, they're mixed right now. I know they're cracking down on dealers and the people who own the booths, right? If you own a booth, you're not allowed to rent any space out anymore to anyone, and the consequences is losing your booth. Um, and I hear so many people now who've lost their space, their national space or who they used to set up with, and now they're looking for space. People say, I get messages, I talk going out to the shows, I hear people saying, anybody that's got any space available, I'm looking for space. But, it becomes a little more serious. I mean, last year, that was kind of the talk last year in Chicago with new people taking over, that they were really looking into and try to crack down on people renting space out. They didn't want them doing that anymore. And you have to remember, Chicago was huge. There was lots of extra tables. They added a lot of tables for the national last year because they had all that extra space. This year in Cleveland, it's considerably smaller, uh, which would make, right, which in past years would make the table space just more expensive, right? When you're going from this big national where people had been there, right, and buying up, space to set up, and then you go to Cleveland, which is much smaller, that would have raised the rates. I mean, this is the year the booth owners would have made a killing selling table space. I mean, an absolute killing selling table space. But now they're cracking down on this, and get caught, lose your booth. I mean, that's the talk out there. That's what everybody's saying. Um, and I'm sure, and I know I've been going the last few years. I'm sure that there's more subletted tables than actual owners in those booths, and I'm sure it's been that way for years, even before I started. Before I started going, new regime, new rules. Uh, And I know people last year were excited. New group taking over the national. I think people were very excited to see what was going to happen. I mean, I think someone who's been like me, who's been trying to get in, trying to get a booth, like you start to think in a way, well, maybe it'll work out that, I can get some space out there to work out that. But I think, or if you look at the bigger picture, it's really not designed that way, right? It's almost as if you really need to know somebody if you're going to end up with one of those booths, right? So if somebody loses a booth, or a booth becomes extra, right? So now there's people, that there's a hierarchy of a waiting list there, and if you're just started out the last couple of years trying to get on that list, it's a long list. I I wonder how different uh it's going to look this year and moving forward with the changes with the rules. Is the cracking down on booth owners going to affect this moving forward? Uh and even competing with Fanatics, right? Who's planning their own thing this year in New York. I think that's in August. And really, what happens if you've got something good, and you can't say that. I mean, this new regime, this is I think their first year taking over, but the national in general, and maybe this is, people saw this coming, but you've got something good, sooner or later, someone's coming to do it better. Someone's coming to take your space and take the people out of your space. Um, I mean, for me, if you truly wanted to fix it, for the amount of people that are on the waiting list for the national, for a booth, they should find a bigger space, add as many booths as they need to empty the waiting list, right? And the waiting list, you have to put your name on that every year. It's not like you get on a waiting list and now I've been on it for 3 years. No, it's every year you got to go back on and refill out the form to be on the waiting list. Um, I've been doing it for 3 years, and I almost feel like I'm wasting my time, right? Uh, at least when I signed up for Chantilly and Philadelphia, I actually hear from people, right? I see emails. I know my name is on a list somewhere. I feel good about it. You know, there's zero confirmation, and I think, I mean, it may sound like a minor complaint, it shouldn't, because for me to think, if I go out and put my name on a list, am I actually going to get a booth for this? No. I mean, it's one of those things that I do every year, because I don't know if someone on the other end is just keeping a tally, like, all right, this guy Ken here, this is the third year in a row he's putting his name on, and we're going to keep a tally of that, versus other people are like, oh yeah, I put my name on a list, and maybe they never did. I don't know. I don't know what to think. And maybe they're going to fix that this year too. Maybe they're going to fix that. I know when I went to the Westchester show and the Hofstra show, they had a booth set up, kind of advertising a little for the national. There was you couldn't get on a waiting list or anything, but there was, advertising for it, like trying to, I guess, get people excited for it. Um, but I think there's probably more people like me out there who would love to have a booth, who would immediately pay to have a booth and would love to go set up there, who put their name on a waiting list every year, and you know even when you're putting your name on a waiting list, you're making arrangements to, be an attendee, to go out and walk the show, because that that phone is never going to ring, or that email is never going to arrive. Um, and people who have been setting up for a number of years under other people, right now, they're being told, look, I can't do this anymore. I don't want to lose my booth. I don't want to get in trouble. You're going to have to find space elsewhere. So I think people who had been setting up there for years now, right, under somebody else's booth, is now like, oh no, now what do I do? Right. So it's as we get closer, I think there's just going to be more and more buzz about this and what's going on. And I'm sure it's going to, really be pretty big when we get out there, when we get out to Cleveland in July, and just to kind of hear and see and hear the stories and see what happens just about the booths and the rules. So let me know what you think. I mean, leave a comment. Do you agree with the new rules? Um, you think it should be that way? Should it be back to the old way? If you've got a booth, you should be able, you're paying for your booth, you should be able to do what you want with it. Because we know every show we go to, every other show, you have a booth there and you want to, sublet a table out, you can do it. Nobody's coming to say you can't do it, as long as you're putting somebody, a decent person, it's respectable on that. Nobody cares. Nobody cares what you put there. So this is a little different. It's just a big stage out there. So let me know what you think. Leave a comment. Uh, I'm looking forward to the national. I'm very excited. That one time a year, the only time of year for some of us, like some people, it's the only time of year you're going to get to see people, old hobby friends, new hobby friends, people you talk to. I've been doing this. I'm in season 4 of this podcast, right? So, I mean, I communicate with so many people, and I only see them in certain places. Some people I only see at the National. Some people, I'm only going to see at Chantilly. Some people I'm only going to see, somewhere else. So this is one of those places where, it's and everyone comes together, right? So everybody is there. So it's just a great time out there. Um, I'm there for the whole week, for the whole hobby experience, right? Uh 70 days. Definitely looking forward to that. My spring and summer schedule right now is set. For setting up, I'm at Card Vault show this weekend at Fenway Park. I talked about that. I'm doing the EC3 Con at Mohegan Sun, June 8th and 9th, and Chantilly, June 21st through the 23rd. So here's an interesting thing talking about waiting lists in Chantilly. Like I have a friend at Chantilly that gives me some table space if I wanted to go set up. And the last show I've been going, and the last show I couldn't go, and I talked about this. I got that email on Thursday saying, "Hey, we have a booth available," right? And I just couldn't take it. But this time I'm going to be back for this one. But I'm going to pack a lot of extra stuff in my car to go. I plan on only setting up, a showcase uh, at Chantilly, but I'm going to have a lot of other things in case I get that email this time. I'm gonna, yeah, 100%. I'm here. I'll take that booth, right? So that's the way to do a waiting list, right? For me, that's send it out, communicate, let me know I'm there, get me excited, let me fill up my truck with extra things just in case I get that email and I can jump on that. That gets me excited about a waiting list. Uh, I've been having fun, walking shows, so I'm glad to be, doing a little bit more of that too. What's pushed me in that direction? I think the pricing on some of these tables, at shows, and I've been I it got to a point where I was just putting my name, "Oh, yeah, I'll do that show, I'll do that show, I'll do that show," and all of a sudden I started getting these invoices for these tables, and I'm like, "Oh, are you kidding me?" I mean, some people at these bigger shows like Dallas and, I mentioned Chantilly, Philly, Chicago, Burbank, they're charging the same amount for their tables, or I should say booths, some of them are booths, that than we are locally setting up at some of these, bigger local shows, right? And I start to think to myself, it's just, what should a table cost, right? How much should the table cost? I I I I would have to imagine if I'm going to Burbank or Chicago, I went to Atlanta, the table I went to Culture Collision, and the table at Culture Collision costs less than some of the local shows that I'm setting up at. I say local bigger shows, not the once a month shows, but these, quarterly shows or whatever every few months that they're setting up. Um, Chantilly is another one. I mean, I know what they pay for the booth down there for so I I think these larger shows, the Burbank, the Dallas, I think they're charging fair amounts for their tables and booths. But then you get people that are charging the same amount for these shows that I just can't imagine that we should be paying that much for a table. Um, how much should a table cost? Is this just gouging? I mean, I don't know what these people are paying to. I mean, I'm not a promoter, right? So I don't want to start jumping way out there saying, people are price gouging. It's too much because I don't know what you're paying for the room. I don't know what the costs are behind promoting a whole show. But if the table prices are the same at Dallas and Burbank and Chicago, that I'd rather just not set up at this show. I'd rather go buy a table at those shows, right? I'd rather go set up. If I'm going to pay that money, I'm going to go set up at a show that's going to be much bigger and worth to pay that amount of money. I know most of the shows I've been setting up for a number of years. Um, I know, I know the show. I talk about knowing the show. So moving forward, and I just gave you my schedule, which leads up to the national. But moving forward after that, maybe a little bit more selective of the shows that I just can't keep paying these high amounts for some of these shows that I just don't think are worth it. Um, I'll just go and walk the show. I think that's what's happened with a lot of people. I start setting up at shows, and I see people who used to be dealers now are walking the shows more than they're setting up. And they're not really saying why, but I mean, I think I know why. I think it's kind of what I'm talking about now. I just think some of the tables are unreasonably high. Um, And I've got myself on enough waiting lists for the shows that I really wanna do. A lot of the shows that I just named here, and I'm hoping that I can start securing some booths at some of these bigger shows. Um, I've been on those waiting lists for a while, so I know I'm getting close. I know I'm getting close to be off the list. Um, I think the hobby is changing a little bit for dealers too. Uh, I think in some of these bigger shows, I think space is gonna start to open up. I think there's a lot of people that are kinda getting out of the setting up as a dealer and more walking the show and selling their stuff other places, selling online or online auctions or things like that. Um, I mean, it could be wishful thinking to me. It could just keep me excited to know that I could have my own booth at some of these shows. Um, but I do. I think there's going to be, you know, more tables available. Even I see shows like that are coming up and the show is like next week and people are saying, "Oh, we still have tables available." Whereas some of these shows would have been sold out for weeks in advance, right? And then you see some of these local shows and people say, "Oh, that's what we need, just another local show." But these guys are charging $40 for a table or $50 for a table. Boom, every table is sold out. Boom, every table's sold out weeks before that show, and it's a little local show, right? So, I think the price of the tables has a lot to do with people, you know, whether they want to be set up as a dealer or walk the show. The other thing I hope promoters do a better job of, and I'm just throwing this in at the end because I just thinking of, being a promoter. If I was a promoter, I would be securing, hotel space more reasonable. I almost think it's kinda like a throw-in all the time. "Oh, yeah, come to the show. You have hotel space. Well, there's hotels, down the road or whatever. Nobody's really thinking maybe, they don't wanna take the reins on something like that. But and I just think they would secure hotel space at a reasonable price. Um, nothing worse than, getting into a show, paying a lot for a table, and then you're like, "Oh, do I wanna drive an hour and a half or an hour or whatever home?" Then you go look at the hotel rooms, it's like $400 a night, and you're like, "Well, it doesn't make sense for me to stay overnight. Now I'm driving back, I'm adding all these hours of driving back and forth." I think they could do a better job of that, and even for the dealers. Not only for the dealers, but for the attendees too. Because some people, like, if I'm looking at a show somewhere and I'm like, "Oh, I could go drive that for a day," and I'm on the website and they're like, "Oh, but, if you book a room in this hotel, you can get it for 99 or 129 or 149 for the night." I'd be more apt to be like, "Hey, it's not bad. I could go out in the afternoon, stay overnight, hit it morning, and then head home." So, just another thought, right? Just another thought, somebody who hates driving so much. Um, so that's it. Uh, you know, some notes I had on here was, my looking at my football, looking at the prices, when to move it. I want to move that football before the national. I don't want to be out there, fighting prices with and margins with people out there that we're all running around with the same card. I'd like to talked about this. I'd like to get rid of that. Football. I've been watching the prices, watching the. I'm hoping by June, by Chantilly, I can dump my football there. I'm hoping that we're at the right price there, and if not, Dallas in July will be where I unload that all. But hoping that this pricing market just jumps up a little bit, and I know I'm gonna get a lot of people saying, "Man, it's not going anywhere." They're gonna be commenting on that, which I know I hear it every year. I hear it every year, and I know some cards are gonna go up, some cards are gonna stay the same, some are gonna go down, um, and then there's gonna be those handful of cards that are, either going up or going down with news through August and into opening day for football. So, and a lot of people talk about, hey, say, selling those, saving that football and selling it in September. And you all know how I feel about that. I'd rather be, I'd rather get rid of all the football, especially the rookies. I mean, I don't mind holding on to the Burrows and the Mahomes and Allen, those cards like that come September, October, and I'm still taking a chance on them, right? But a lot of these rookies have no idea how they're going to start to play, so get rid of them before they have a chance to let me down. So that's it. Look, Fenway Park this weekend, so probably going to be late Sunday, so Monday's episode is probably going to come around lunchtime on Monday. I'm probably going to do the episode Monday morning. I want to thank everyone for tuning in. And if you like what you hear, please definitely subscribe. And most importantly, tell a friend and spread the word. Until next time, take care of yourselves and everyone around you.